The mind is the lens through which we experience everything. Every choice, every action, every reaction begins there. When it is steady, it gives direction and purpose. When it is unsettled, it pulls us into distraction, reactivity, and wasted effort. The Stoics understood this well. They taught that character, resilience, and peace of mind are not accidents of birth, but the result of how we shape our thoughts. Mental habits are not permanent. They can be trained, refined, and brought into harmony with the life we wish to live. Rewiring the mind is not about perfection. It is about alignment, bringing thoughts, values, and actions into coherence. This requires patience and daily effort, stripping away what is unnecessary, focusing on what is within our control, and choosing principles over impulse. The Stoics gave us a framework for this work, one that still speaks with clarity today. Through their guidance, we learn how to cultivate a mind that remains steady in uncertainty, calm in conflict, and purposeful in every choice. In this video, we will explore 7 Stoic-inspired practices for reshaping the mind. Each is more than a concept. Each is a discipline to be lived. This is not theory for its own sake. It is a call to practice, to think differently, so that life itself is lived with clarity and strength. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Master your attention. Attention is the gateway through which every impression and experience enters the mind. What you choose to focus on shapes the patterns of your thinking, and those patterns form the foundation of your character. The Stoics urged us to direct our attention with intention, guided by reason, aligned with purpose, rather than surrender it to whatever calls most loudly. When attention is scattered, judgment weakens, depth is lost, and the link between intention and action phrase. Today, the struggle for attention is constant. News cycles amplify urgency, pulling us into reactions instead of reflection. Notifications fracture our focus, fragmenting the day into interruptions. Social media and endless streams of entertainment feed us content that is quick to consume but slow to nourish. Every divided moment makes it harder to sustain deep thought, to see the whole picture, to separate the essential from the trivial. Attention, then, is not a small matter. It is the starting point of wisdom, the discipline on which all others depend. The Stoics taught that attention should not drift aimlessly, but be guided by reason and anchored in purpose. When we allow it to be captured by every passing distraction, the mind loses its strength. Depth of thought becomes shallow, judgment grows unsteady, and the link between intention and action begins to fray. In our time, the struggle for attention is constant. News cycles are designed to stir urgency, pulling us toward reaction instead of reflection. Notifications demand our response, fragmenting the day into interruptions. Social media and endless streams of content give us stimulation that is quick to consume, but rarely aligned with what truly matters. Each moment of divided focus chips away at our ability to think deeply, to see clearly, and to separate the essential from the trivial. The mind grows scattered, and with it, life itself feels less coherent. The Stoic way was simple but disciplined. Begin by identifying what lies within your control and what deserves your energy. Once priorities were made clear, attention was no longer left vulnerable to chance. It was guarded. Chosen books, meaningful conversations, and nourishing environments became filters that allowed only what was worthy to enter the mind. By setting these boundaries, they created space for clarity and deliberate thought. For us, This practice begins with shaping both our surroundings and our habits so they serve rather than scatter our attention. Silence unnecessary alerts and remove interruptions that add nothing to your purpose. Keep your space ordered and uncluttered, holding only what supports the task before you. A clear environment supports a clear mind. Then, give yourself the gift of undivided time. Define periods for study, reflection, or work when nothing unrelated is allowed to intrude. With practice, the mind learns to rest within these boundaries, and attention, once scattered, grows steady again. Training the mind to focus within set intervals creates a rhythm it can learn to trust. Within these periods, give yourself fully to the work before you. Tasks that require depth, patience, and undivided attention. Resist the urge to divide your focus across many objectives. Each transition between tasks scatters energy and weakens engagement. Instead, cultivate the discipline of completing one task before beginning another. The practice builds momentum, preserves energy, and strengthens clarity. When each action is carried through to completion, the work itself gains in quality, and the mind grows steadier. Over time, this rhythm becomes second nature, allowing attention to rest in longer stretches of focus without strain. Simple rituals can help anchor this state of concentration. A few steady breaths to quiet the mind, a review of priorities to set intention, a consistent arrangement of your space that signals readiness for meaningful work. These small cues build an association in the mind, easing the transition into deep focus. With steady practice, attention becomes resilient. In moments of pressure or distraction, it remains rooted where you have chosen to place it. This steadiness is not only practical, it is deeply Stoic. For when attention is anchored, reasoning can unfold without interference, and choices can be guided by clarity rather than noise. Such a mind becomes an ally, both in daily tasks and in the high demands of life, ensuring that action flows from deliberate thought rather than impulse. Chapter 2. Challenge automatic thoughts. Unexamined thoughts often carry hidden weight, assumptions untested, biases shaped by history, and emotional impulses that bypass reason. Left unchallenged, they can distort how we see the world, leading to choices that are misaligned with reality or with our deeper values. The Stoics understood this. They treated the mind as a craftsman treats his tools, sharpening, refining, and testing them so they would not fail in moments of use. By questioning automatic thoughts before granting them authority, they created space between stimulus and response. In that space, freedom of choice became possible. These automatic patterns do not appear overnight. They are shaped across years, by habit, by protective instincts formed in hardship, by unresolved experiences that left their mark, by cultural and social currents absorbed without notice. When we accept them blindly, they weave themselves into the framework of our perception and quietly steer our judgments, our decisions, even the way we interpret others. A single unexamined belief can bend the course of thought for years. But when brought into the light of awareness, it can be questioned, reshaped, or set aside. In this way, the mind becomes less a prisoner of old patterns and more a partner in living with intention. Anticipating failure at the start of every challenge quietly shapes the path we take. It leads us toward hesitation, avoidance, or disengagement before effort has even begun. These ingrained patterns place limits on growth, weaken adaptability when life shifts, and narrow our vision of what is possible. Over time, they drain confidence, erode resilience, and leave the mind burdened by unnecessary strain. The Stoics faced such thoughts with patience and discipline. Their method was not to react hastily, but to observe carefully. They created space between the thought and the response, a pause wide enough to examine what had appeared in the mind before it was allowed to govern action. Within that pause, they asked, where does this thought come from? Is it born of lived experience? Is it supported by reliable knowledge? Or does it arise from fear, from assumption, from old habits or inherited beliefs? Once the source was known, they tested its strength. Was the thought supported by clear evidence or by speculation? Did it align with the virtues they held as guiding stars, justice, courage, self-discipline, and wisdom? Would following it lead to choices that were constructive, purposeful, and ethically sound? Through these filters, every impression was weighed. None were accepted blindly. By submitting each thought to reason, virtue, and usefulness, they transformed the mind from a chamber of unchecked reactions into a disciplined space of deliberate choice. This steady practice built lives that were anchored not by impulse, but by principle. And this same approach remains available to us today. One way to bring it into practice is through written reflection. When a thought arises, especially one charged with fear, pessimism, or sudden emotion, capture it in writing. Seeing it on the page creates distance. It slows the mind's rush to react and allows space for clarity. Once written down, the thought can be examined step by step. Is it factually sound? Does it rest on evidence or assumption? Does it move me closer to the life I wish to live, or away from it? In this way, even the most disruptive thought can be transformed from a source of turmoil into a teacher, guiding the mind toward steadiness, resilience, and truth. When a thought arises, examine not only its truth, but also its relevance. Ask whether it speaks to the present circumstances and consider what might follow if you were to act on it, both now and in the longer span of time. Weigh its potential to create outcomes that are rational, constructive, and in harmony with your guiding principles. Then, assign it its proper place. Some thoughts deserve trust and priority. Others deserve little more than acknowledgement before being set aside. Over time, this practice turns the written record into more than a journal. It becomes a map of the mind, a clear outline of recurring patterns, hidden assumptions, and the fears that quietly bend perception. In these pages, distortions reveal themselves. You begin to see where judgment is repeatedly clouded, where inherited beliefs no longer serve you, and where unexamined impulses shape choices against your deeper values. Such awareness makes correction possible. With clarity, effort can be directed exactly where it is needed, untangling thoughts that have long run on autopilot. As this discipline becomes steady, unhelpful patterns lose their hold. They are gradually replaced by perspectives rooted in tested reason, sound evidence, and moral clarity. The result is a mind less vulnerable to fear, bias, or old habits, and more attuned to deliberate choice. By consciously deciding which thoughts deserve acceptance and which should be released, you shape a mental framework that supports purposeful living. In this way, the mind grows steady under pressure, careful in judgment, and consistent in aligning energy with enduring values and long-term aims. Chapter 3. Train emotional interpretation. Events in themselves are neutral. They carry no built-in meaning, no emotion of their own. The feelings you experience arise from the interpretation you give them. The Stoics reminded us that while you cannot control what happens, you can always choose how to interpret and respond. Strengthening this skill allows you to steady your emotions, to see events with clarity, and to act with calm regardless of what unfolds around you. Yet the mind often reacts before reason has time to intervene. A sharp word can spark anger, a delay can stir impatience, a setback can bring discouragement. These emotions do not come from the events themselves, but from the stories we attach to them. To rewire the mind is to pause long enough to separate fact from interpretation, so that impulse does not dictate response. The Stoics practiced this slowing of thought in the face of challenge, knowing that immediate reactions often bypass wisdom. The Stoics began by looking directly at the raw facts, stripping away assumption, opinion, and emotional coloring. This was not a quick glance, but a deliberate effort to see events in their simplest, most verifiable form. By doing so, they created a foundation that was clear and stable, free from the distortions of bias or impulse. Once the facts were established, they turned to interpretation. Here, choice mattered. They asked themselves, which perspective aligns with reason, with justice, with courage, with self-discipline? This step acted as a safeguard, ensuring that emotions did not lead them into actions at odds with their principles or long-term aims. Such clarity does not come by chance. It requires practice, catching the mind in the brief space between noticing an event and rushing into judgment. This transition is usually so fast we hardly notice it. The discipline lies in pausing within that gap, holding back from immediate labeling or assumption. The pause is not hesitation. It is a moment of control, a space where clarity can emerge before emotion colors perception. Take a simple example. A train is delayed. If you frame it neutrally, the train is delayed. You remove exaggeration and imagined consequences. You have stated only what is real. From there, options open: to use the time productively, to adjust calmly, or simply to accept what is outside your control. This process works because it places of facts before interpretation. Grounding yourself first in what is real allows reason, rather than impulse, to guide the response. With practice, this order becomes natural. The mind learns to separate the event itself from the meaning you attach to it. Over time, this habit strengthens objectivity. Emotional regulation becomes steadier and more dependable. You begin to notice how often unchecked interpretations inflate small inconveniences into large frustrations, or minor challenges into imagined threats. By returning again and again to facts first, interpretation second, the mind learns to remain calm, clear, and aligned with what truly matters. This growing awareness acts as an inner safeguard, creating distance between what happens and how you respond. In that space, you can choose interpretations that foster steadiness and clarity, rather than being pulled into reactive or destructive states. Over time, as the habit of separating fact from interpretation strengthens, it begins to reshape how your mind relates to the world around you. Emotions will always be part of life, but their intensity and duration can be softened. The first surge of feeling is caught before it takes hold, leaving room for reason to guide your response. Instead of being carried forward by raw impulse, your perspective is shaped with care, ensuring that action flows from thoughtful evaluation rather than reflex. Impulsive judgments, the kind that so often lead to hasty words or regrettable decisions, lose much of their grip. They are steadily replaced with measured assessments, shaped by observation, reflection, and alignment with your chosen principles. This discipline becomes an anchor, grounding you in moments of tension, uncertainty, or conflict. It also strengthens your ability to stay focused when distractions or pressures arise. Rather than reacting with urgency or panic, you respond with accuracy and purpose. The benefits extend far beyond avoiding mistakes. Your speech becomes more precise, your words chosen with care, reducing misunderstanding and unnecessary conflict. Your decisions sharpen in quality because they rest on clear evaluation, weighed against long-term priorities, and tested against the principles you have chosen to live by. Even in high-pressure moments, you maintain composure, allowing strategy and purpose to guide you. When others may falter in time, this creates a reinforcing cycle. Each moment of measured interpretation builds steadiness under pressure. That steadiness deepens your trust in yourself, and that trust in turn strengthens your capacity to remain calm and composed in the face of future challenges. When you practice measured interpretation, its influence reaches into relationships and group life. People notice when you remain composed in situations that often provoke irritation, defensiveness, or aggression. That composure becomes a form of trust. Others learn that your responses will be even, fair, and measured, even under strain. This predictability makes conversation safer. Colleagues, friends, and family feel more able to speak openly without fearing disproportionate reaction. Conflicts are less likely to escalate because you are less prone to feed them with emotion. Instead, you can guide exchanges toward resolution. Over time, this steadiness shapes how people perceive you. It affects not only personal interactions, but also how your judgment and leadership are received in group settings. Composure and balanced judgment lend weight to your contributions in discussions, negotiations, and problem-solving. Eventually, consistent control of interpretation becomes a source of influence. You can more easily mediate disputes, propose solutions, and lead with credibility. By making this discipline a routine part of your conduct, your visible actions come into alignment with your principles. That alignment produces a life that is intentional, principled, and resilient. One in which decisions, responses, and interactions reflect the character you have chosen to cultivate. Chapter 4. Strengthen your reasoning. The quality of your reasoning shapes the quality of your choices. The Stoics regarded reason as our highest faculty, the tool that lets us act in accordance with virtue and avoid what brings harm or disorder. When reasoning is clear and structured, you see situations without distortion, identify practical courses of action, and resist emotional or manipulative pressures. Reasoning is not a fixed gift. It is a craft that improves with deliberate practice. Like training a muscle, it requires repeated focused effort. The Stoics practiced thinking with structure and precision. We can do the same with simple, repeatable habits. Slow down the process of judgment. Give a moment for observation to settle before drawing conclusions. Examine premises carefully. Ask what you are assuming and whether those assumptions are justified. Test conclusions against evidence and against the virtues you value: justice, courage, temperance, wisdom. Write to clarify thinking. Putting an argument on paper exposes gaps and forces precision. Use questioning. Play devil's advocate. Seek counterexamples and require clear reasons for each step. Learn from dialogue. Discuss ideas with steady interlocutors who will test your reasoning without personal attack. These practices refine your capacity to evaluate information, weigh trade-offs, and make decisions that are both effective and principled. As your reasoning becomes sharper, your actions become more reliable, and your responses less driven by immediate feeling. In high-pressure moments, this steadiness allows you to think strategically and act with purpose, so that your choices consistently reflect the ends you truly intend to serve. They treated reasoning as a craft to be practiced continually, not a talent to be called on casually. To sharpen it, they broke difficult problems into smaller, manageable parts and tested their conclusions under pressure. Debate was not performance, but examination, a way to reveal weak links in an argument and to see how an idea held up when pushed. Writing was another quiet tool. Putting thoughts on the page slows the mind, clarifies connections, and reveals gaps that conversation alone can miss. In every inquiry, they sought multiple angles, both the obvious and the subtle, and they paid attention to the assumptions that supported each view. Crucially, they welcomed opposing perspectives, not to win an argument, but to expose blind spots and unexamined biases. Each claim was measured against evidence and then judged by the virtues they lived by: justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom. If a conclusion failed those tests, it was refined or set aside. This discipline guarded them against partial information, personal preference, and emotional distortion. You can adopt the same steady method. Begin by naming the verifiable facts, separating them from untested assumptions or emotional interpretations. List every plausible option, including those you're tempted to dismiss. For each, imagine likely outcomes now and later, short-term consequences, ripple effects, and who will be affected. Ask what assumptions each option rests on and try to find counterexamples. Test your preferred choice against the principles you value and against clear, objective evidence. Write these steps down. The act of recording forces precision and makes later review possible. When decisions matter, move deliberately through this routine. Seek perspectives from steady interlocutors who will test your reasoning without rancor. After action, review the result with the same calm scrutiny you used to arrive at it. Over time, this patient, methodical practice strengthens judgment, reduces error, and makes your choices more reliable and aligned with the life you intend to live. Compare each option against your core values. Ask whether it reflects truth, fairness, courage, and self-discipline. This careful evaluation acts as a safeguard, helping ensure that the decisions you make strengthen your integrity, build character, and avoid unnecessary harm. A reasoning journal can support this practice. When faced with an important choice, write down the situation as clearly and factually as possible, without exaggeration. Outline every possible course of action, and for each, note the reasons for and against it. Observe where each choice aligns with your principles and where it might conflict. After the decision is made and the outcome revealed, return to your notes. Consider whether your reasoning produced the effect you intended, where it was sound, and where it might have fallen short. Over time, this record becomes a map of your thinking habits, highlighting patterns that can be strengthened and weaknesses that need attention. It also shows when recurring assumptions or emotional influences distort judgment. By following this disciplined approach, you cultivate the ability to reassess facts calmly, adapt to changing circumstances, and revise plans with precision. This steadiness under pressure allows decisions to emerge in a measured way, even when stakes are high or conditions unpredictable. Strong reasoning in this form extends beyond problem solving. It forms the foundation for principled living, letting you act with clarity and balance, guided by reality and aligned with your values. Chapter 5. Strengthen mental discipline. Mental discipline is the capacity to direct thoughts and actions consistently toward chosen goals, despite distractions, temptations, or discomfort. The Stoics recognized that without such discipline, reason and virtue are easily overwhelmed by impulse and external pressures. Discipline is not merely about restriction, it is about guiding your choices and actions through deliberate intent rather than fleeting emotion or convenience. The cultivation of mental discipline begins with small, consistent acts, setting a clear schedule and following it, keeping commitments even when inconvenient, and managing impulses in everyday situations. These practices lay the foundation for greater self-mastery. The Stoics often tested themselves through voluntary discomfort, fasting, physical exertion, or living simply. These exercises were not punishment, but demonstrations that the mind could remain steady without comfort, that resilience did not depend on ease. Today, this principle can be adapted by honestly assessing areas of life where comfort or convenience have become habitual, where avoidance has weakened focus or resilience. Once identified, introduce structured challenges to strengthen endurance and attention. These might include periods of work without digital distractions, blocks of concentrated study, or maintaining composure during difficult conversations or high-pressure situations. Each deliberate exercise in restraint and focus enhances the mind's ability to resist distraction, overcome procrastination, and maintain course under stress. A practical way to reinforce discipline is through careful tracking. Keep a structured log of daily actions in relation to your priorities. Record completed tasks, moments of distraction, instances where you acted despite fatigue or resistance, and the triggers behind each challenge. Include concise notes on surrounding circumstances, reasoning behind your decisions, and the short and long-term outcomes of each effort. End each day with brief self-reflection. Note what strategies were effective, where discipline faltered, and how adjustments can be made going forward. Over time, this continuous observation and reflection strengthens mental resilience, sharpens focus, and transforms discipline from a task into a steady, natural habit. Reviewing this record regularly, weekly or bi-weekly, allows you to see recurring patterns, track progress, and make thoughtful adjustments. This practice builds accountability and provides tangible evidence of whether your daily actions align with your principles and support long-term goals. When mental discipline becomes a deeply ingrained habit, it reshapes your approach to challenges, opportunities, and daily interactions. You act with steadiness and consistency, regardless of mood shifts, energy fluctuations, or unpredictable circumstances. Actions are anchored in a carefully cultivated internal framework, guided by deliberate principles rather than passing impulses. Motivation still plays a role, but it becomes a supporting force rather than the driver. Your choices are grounded in reasoned commitment to follow through on what you have chosen to pursue. This internal structure provides a steady anchor, allowing you to remain composed and decisive in the face of uncertainty, competing demands, or temporary setbacks. Steadiness produces more than balance. It creates momentum. Each deliberate choice and each act of self-control reinforces your ability to navigate complex situations, adapt when conditions change, and make thoughtful decisions under pressure. Over time, these repeated acts form a reliable record of performance, shaping both your identity and your confidence in your capacity to act with clarity and composure. Others notice this consistency. It becomes a defining element of how you are perceived. A dependable presence, calm and measured even in uncertain or emotionally charged situations. This perception fosters trust, encourages open communication, and attracts opportunities that value patience, sound judgment, and steady follow-through. The benefits of this disciplined steadiness extend across every dimension of life. Your responses, decisions, and actions remain intentional, grounded, and aligned with the identity and standards you have chosen, regardless of external pressures or sudden shifts in circumstance. In this environment, long-term objectives can be pursued methodically, with patience and focus, without being derailed by minor setbacks, temporary discomfort, or fleeting impulses. Sustained focus on priorities becomes possible even in fast-paced, demanding environments filled with competing pressures. The steadiness and measured composure you cultivate are noticed by others, sending a subtle yet powerful signal of reliability. This presence fosters deeper collaboration, inspires confidence, and encourages a climate where trust, respect, and productive cooperation naturally grow over time. Colleagues, partners, and peers begin to see you as a dependable anchor amid uncertainty. This perception often leads to greater responsibilities and meaningful opportunities. The combination of inner control and outward reliability creates a clear path forward, even amid complexity and pressure. It equips you to adapt thoughtfully without losing focus, maintain composure while guiding others, and consistently align your actions with your principles. By sustaining this disciplined approach day after day, in every context, you move forward with clarity, purpose, and resilience. Through this practice, you not only make steady progress toward your most important goals, but also lay a durable foundation for long-term success, meaningful influence, and a legacy of consistency recognized and valued by others. Chapter 6. Strengthen emotional resilience. Emotional resilience is the ability to recover from setbacks, adapt to change, and maintain stability under pressure. The Stoics regarded resilience as essential to a virtuous life, allowing a person to remain steady despite external events. Resilience does not mean avoiding difficulty. It means developing the inner capacity to face it without being overwhelmed. Building resilience begins with accepting that challenges, obstacles, and setbacks are an inevitable part of life. Every person will encounter difficulty, and resisting this truth only wastes energy and breeds frustration. By embracing the reality of discomfort and adversity, attention can shift to constructive responses, finding solutions, making progress, and maintaining equilibrium. The Stoics practiced this through premeditatio malorum, the deliberate rehearsal of potential hardships. They envisioned loss, conflict, or failure, and prepared themselves mentally to meet these events with reason and composure. This practice reduced the shock and emotional turbulence when challenges arose, allowing action with steadiness and clarity rather than being caught off guard. In modern life, this principle can be applied through proactive coping strategies. Begin by identifying situations, people, or environments most likely to create stress or pressure. Once these triggers are recognized, develop specific plans for handling them, mentally rehearsing how to respond with calm and purpose before difficulties arise. This may involve setting clear boundaries to protect your time and energy, establishing a calm and structured approach for resolving disagreements, or practicing breathing and grounding exercises to restore focus under pressure. Having these tools ready reduces the likelihood of impulsive reactions and increases your ability to act in accordance with your principles. Preparation strengthens your mental framework, making it easier to navigate sudden high-pressure situations with composure. Developing resilience also involves deliberate exposure to manageable challenges. These controlled experiences expand your capacity to adapt, respond under strain, and maintain focus without being overwhelmed. Examples include taking on responsibilities that require new skills, engaging in public speaking, managing tense conversations, or stepping into unfamiliar environments that demand quick adjustment. Each exposure is an opportunity to build confidence, tolerance for uncertainty, and the ability to handle complexity. Reflection is central to cultivating lasting resilience. After facing a stressful or demanding situation, set aside uninterrupted time to review your thoughts, decisions, and actions. Examine the event step by step, noting where composure was maintained, where it began to waver, and the conditions influencing each stage of your response. Identify strategies, mindsets, or techniques that helped, as well as those that were less effective. A resilience journal supports this process by providing a structured record. For each entry, describe the event, your immediate emotional and mental reaction, the decisions made, and the actions taken. Assess the outcomes and draw lessons, noting how you will apply them in future situations. Include observations about environmental factors, the influence of others, and moments when focus either faltered or strengthened over time. This collection becomes a practical map of your patterns, highlighting improvements, revealing persistent challenges, and showing how adaptability grows across different contexts. By consistently observing and recording these experiences, you transform each challenge into a deliberate opportunity for growth and lasting resilience. Regularly reviewing these records allows you to refine coping strategies, deepen awareness of your resilience triggers, and cultivate steadiness in how you respond to adversity. When reflection is practiced consistently, resilience becomes embedded in your way of thinking and acting, shaping responses both to expected and unforeseen challenges. Setbacks begin to feel like manageable disruptions rather than lasting obstacles, because the mind has been trained to absorb impact, adjust, and move forward intentionally. You maintain a clear sense of direction under pressure by returning to priorities you have defined in advance, keeping attention focused and energy efficiently directed. Intentional rest and recalibration allow you to recover composure quickly after demanding periods. This steady presence is noticed by others. Over time, people associate you with reliability, measured thinking, and the ability to guide situations toward constructive outcomes without being unsettled by external pressures. As trust in your dependability grows, your influence deepens and your capacity to lead expands, whether in moments of crisis or during steady progress. Resilience rooted in character allows you to face uncertainty and complexity without losing clarity or principle, ensuring that actions remain deliberate, balanced, and aligned with your values. Chapter 7. Sharpen critical thinking. Critical thinking is the disciplined process of analyzing information, evaluating evidence, and forming reasoned judgments. The Stoics considered it essential to a virtuous life because it enables a person to distinguish truth from error, remain independent of misleading influences, and act in alignment with reason. A strong habit of critical thinking allows you to approach situations with clarity, question assumptions, and make decisions that reflect your principles. The foundation of critical thinking begins with the discipline to separate objective facts from personal interpretations. Facts are concrete, measurable, and verifiable through reliable evidence. Interpretations, in contrast, are shaped by experience, emotion, bias, and cultural influence. By clearly distinguishing between these, you build a framework for reasoning that is grounded, precise, and guided by principle. Learning to distinguish between facts and personal interpretations provides a clearer understanding of reality and reduces the risk of misjudging situations. The Stoics emphasized this practice, recognizing that much human suffering arises from inaccurate judgments rather than from events themselves. By making this separation habitual, you limit the influence of emotional distortion and maintain a steady, balanced mindset when making decisions. To strengthen this skill, adopt a routine of questioning the accuracy and reliability of the information you encounter. When presented with a claim, identify its source and consider whether the supporting evidence is credible and verifiable. Reflect on alternative explanations and evaluate each possibility on its own merit. This is not about dismissing information, but about ensuring its validity before incorporating it into your thinking. Approaching information with this level of scrutiny builds a solid foundation for sound decision-making and protects against impulsive or poorly informed choices. Practical exercises can reinforce this skill. One effective method is structured problem analysis. Break an issue into smaller, manageable parts. Identify verified facts for each component and explore potential solutions from multiple perspectives. Compare each option against your core principles, considering both short-term and long-term effects on yourself and others. Engage in reasoned discussions, supporting your position with evidence while remaining open to modifying your stance when presented with stronger reasoning or clearer data. Maintaining a critical thinking journal can greatly enhance your ability to refine judgment and decision-making. Start by recording the situation in detail. The context, the conditions under which the decision was made, and any constraints that influenced the process. Document the evidence you considered, factual data, reliable sources, expert input, or direct observation. Outline the reasoning that led you to choose a particular course of action, noting the factors you prioritized and why they seemed most important. Finally, record the actions you took and the immediate and later outcomes. Make it a regular practice to review these entries. Look for recurring patterns in your thinking, such as over-reliance on certain types of evidence or the tendency to dismiss alternative options too quickly. Identify where sound judgments were consistently made and where mistakes or oversights occurred. Pay attention to instances where risks were overlooked, decisions were based on incomplete information, or assumptions were accepted without adequate verification. This kind of reflection offers a clear view of the strengths and weaknesses in your reasoning. Over time, the journal becomes a personal guide for improving decision-making, highlighting which approaches consistently yield positive results and which habits require adjustment. By reviewing these records, you can consciously refine your future actions, avoiding the repetition of past errors. The practice also cultivates deeper self-awareness, allowing you to recognize patterns in your thinking even as a situation unfolds and make thoughtful course corrections in real time.